The Denver Broncos have two of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, but their journey from college has been as close to polar opposite as possible. While it's true they both played for the University of Kansas, Aqib Talib was a highly touted first-round pick and a highly sought-after free agent after he finished his rookie contract with the Buccaneers. Chris Harris, on the other hand, wasn't even drafted, he didn't even get invited to the Combine, and many believed he was going to get cut after his first training camp. Instead, he outperformed all expectations and became one of the premier cornerbacks in the NFL. The thing about Harris is that he's excellent at mirroring and anticipating what receivers are trying to do. He's great in space by using his quick footwork to attack a receiver and take away their route. Versus the Texans in Week 7, Harris is playing an off-man coverage versus DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins runs a stop-and-go route up the left sideline, hoping to bait Harris into giving up the downfield throwing lane. Harris stays disciplined in his coverage, correctly watching Hopkins' hips to make sure he doesn't fall for the trick. He doesn't, and the ball falls incomplete. A few weeks earlier versus the Bengals, Harris is lining up opposite of Brandon LaFell on the outside, while Talib is in the slot versus AJ Green. The Broncos are playing with two deep safeties, while they leave the rest of their defenders in man coverage. This defense is also known as cover 2 man, and it was used extensively by the Broncos last season. After the snap, Harris uses a two-hand jam and rides LaFell up the left sideline, using the boundary as an extra defender. His coverage is so tight, and the coverage across the field with the other Broncos defenders is so well done that Andy Dalton has to scramble to make a play. Somehow, he escapes his collapsing pocket and gets down the field for a 15-yard gain. Now, Harris does have his faults, and I would say he's better in zone coverage than he is purely as a press cornerback based on his size. He can be a bit aggressive at times, and will trust that he can use his recovery speed to get back in the right position and trail technique. The only problem is that this opens him up to quick breaking plays. If Matt McGloin noticed Seth Roberts in the slot completely juking Harris out of his shoes, it probably would have been a big play. However, he trusted Michael Crabtree to beat Aqib Talib up the sideline. I don't personally like this matchup myself, but they must have seen something in the scouting report to want to test this play. Here's another example versus the Panthers, where Benjamin exposes Harris by simply being more physical. Benjamin takes an inside release while Harris is playing a man-to-man coverage at the line of scrimmage. Harris attempts to press him, but Benjamin uses his outside arm and breaks the contact of Harris's left arm, causing him to ever so slightly lose balance. I paused the video at this screen because I want you to notice the difference in coverage between Talib and Harris. Talib has his right hand on Funchess in order to fill the breaks, while Harris's coverage is slightly farther away. Cam Newton sees this and throws the ball directly at Benjamin to allow him to outbody Harris for the touchdown. Now, later in the same game, Harris was able to get his revenge. The Panthers are running a slant flat concept on the left side of the formation, while the Broncos counter with a single high safety look pre-snap. Before Cam Newton even started to throw this pass, Harris recognized the route combination and drove on Benjamin. His intelligence clearly shut down this concept from the start, and he was rewarded with an interception for the Broncos defense. From a scheme standpoint, while Chris Harris plays on the outside versus two wide receiver sets, in the Broncos defense, he slid inside to the slot, usually whenever an offense brought on three wide receiver sets. This allowed the Broncos to use Harris to cover the shiftier, speedier receivers like Corey Brown, while Bradley Roby played physically on the boundary opposite of Talib. Harris is an elite slot defender, and he has fluid hips to prevent any separation. Now, so far in this video, we've mainly talked about Chris Harris, but I want to spend some time looking at Aqib Talib. When comparing the two, Talib is definitely better at covering the taller, longer receivers using his physicality to track his opponent. He's very reactionary and does a fantastic job of breaking on routes and coming off his zone duties at the correct time. Generally speaking, his footwork is tight, and he knows how to plant and drive with minimal wasted steps. Versus the Bengals, AJ Green runs a stick route between the Broncos' cover 2 defense. Talib, as a flat curl defender, watches the backfield and drives at the ball as soon as it leaves Andy Dalton's hands. Talib comes down hard and fast and completely obliterates Green to the ground, causing him to drop the pass. Now, this aggressiveness definitely works for his play style and allowed him to make some awesome plays. Earlier in the same game, Mohamed Sanu runs a dig route while Talib is in off-man coverage. Talib doesn't think twice about diving on this route, and he jumps in front of Sanu to break up the pass. If this was a double move or a pump fake or really anything like that, Talib could have set himself up to getting completely torched on this play. That did happen from time to time, and we can see that versus the Raiders. Amari Cooper is on the left sideline, and Talib completely falls for the first 3 steps, thinking he's going to run a slant route. Realizing his mistake, he stops his momentum and then drives at what he believes will be an out route. Again, this was a mistake, as Cooper was just using his subtle footwork to get Talib out of position. Unfortunately for Cooper, and fortunately for the Broncos, Matt McGloin overthrows the pass and the Raiders miss out on a huge missed opportunity. In addition to a few missed or completed opportunities, sometimes it's as simple as a perfect pass that beats good coverage. In the Panthers match in Week 1, Devin Funchess runs an out route versus Aqib Talib on the sideline. Off the line of scrimmage, he doesn't do anything fancy, but just takes a simple hop-step release, while Talib jabs and rides him with both hands. I rarely see this, but Talib then turns his head back to the middle of the field and checks to see if he has safety help. If he does, he might try to get into a trail technique or on the receiver's hip pocket in order to use the safety to bracket the receiver. However, he sees a safety shift over to Harris in the slot. Even though he turned his head, he still doesn't lose a step in this coverage. After Funchess cuts to the sideline and looks back to the quarterback, Talib turns his hips and loses one tiny hop of momentum, which pushes him slightly past the wide receiver. He then drives correctly at the inside shoulder, aiming to break up this pass, but this is all it takes to make an NFL reception. From a quarterbacking standpoint, this is one of the best and ballsiest throws I saw all game. Based on the coverage, if he threw the pass at any later moment, there's a chance that Talib could have snagged this ball or broken up the pass simply by his tight coverage. If it hasn't been clear by now, the Broncos defense faced a lot of top-tier wide receiver talent. In Week 5, the Broncos faced the Falcons and they held Julio Jones to just 29 yards. Talib played Jones aggressively on the right side of the field and broke up this pass since he was able to drive hard and correctly get underneath the throw. On one of his 2 receptions, the Broncos were playing cover 2 man with Talib facing Jones on the left sideline. Jones runs a quick in route, which Talib drives at with both of his hands to press Jones. He's in a great position, but since the Falcons' pass protection holds up, Jones is able to pivot his route back to the sideline and he eventually loses the cornerback. Now, against the vast majority of wide receivers, it's very hard to cover for this long. But combine that with the fact that this is Julio frickin' Jones, it makes this play damn near impossible. Now earlier, I mentioned that the Broncos defense held him to just 29 yards. That wasn't all Harris, nor was all Talib. They definitely used safety help at times in order to bracket Jones and remove him from the play. While fantasy football owners were probably pissed, the Falcons ended up winning this game by using their running backs in the passing game. Tevin Coleman became a huge mismatch, and in one poor play by Brandon Marshall, the Falcons scored on a 31-yard throw down the middle of the field. Speaking of defensive help, it would be disingenuous of me not to mention the effect of the Broncos' pass rushers. Having guys like Von Miller, Shane Ray, and last year with DeMarcus Ware, it certainly helped take the pressure off the cornerbacks. In this play versus the Bengals, Von Miller uses a spin move off the right edge. This forces Andy Dalton to step outside the pocket and read the field on the run. Fortunately for the Broncos, all the receivers were covered, while Derek Wolfe chased Dalton from behind and forced him to throw the ball away. In general, from a physical standpoint, both Harris and Talib are good in space. Harris only missed 1 tackle all season, while Talib just missed 3. Both do a good job of breaking down and driving through the hips of the player they want to tackle. Here, the quarterback throws a quick smoke route to Amari Cooper, hoping that he can break past and get yards after the catch. However, Harris recognizes the play and drives forward, tackling Cooper for a minimal gain. Overall, Chris Harris and Aqib Talib are not perfect, but they do such a good job negating the obvious weaknesses in the scheme that, in my opinion, they are the best cornerback duo in the NFL. Moving on to next season, here's a list of some of the wide receivers this pair should face. I only included the out-of-division opponents, as this list was starting to get a bit long, and we all know they'll face Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen next year, but needless to say, I'm very excited to see how they'll fare. Well, that's all I have for you in this breakdown. Next up, I'll be looking at some preseason film work, and I still haven't really decided who I'm going to look at. Maybe it might be a quarterback or someone else from one of the Week 2 matches, but it should be a good one. Up until then, you're more than welcome to support this channel and keep the lights running through a small donation via my Patreon account. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at Samuel R. Gold.